Oh yeah, football, yeah. And welcome in to Fantasy in Frames, Fourth in Frames, as tonight we talk about our top 12 running backs. Way too early for the 2025 season. I'm Rhett Manuel. I'm here with Kyle Ziegler, and I'm here with Aiden Weingardner. And we are going to have a situation tonight. And as we always like to say, let's get it popping.
This should be played at high volume, preferably in a residential area.
And ladies and gentlemen, we are so honored to have you dropping in with us on this Wednesday night for Fourth and Frames. And as always, do not forget to like and subscribe and review to catch anytime a new podcast or short drops from us here at Fourth and Frames. You can also search for all the podcasts here at Fantasy and Frames by name wherever you listen to podcasts. And for us, make sure to subscribe to the Fourth and Frames podcast and lock in at fantasyandframes.com for the latest weekly IDP and Dynasty rankings, articles, takes, news, and notes. And fellas, look, Kyle, Aiden, normally I got my two road dogs here right by me, but Nate's going through some personal things right now he has to deal with. Drew is having extreme technical difficulties tonight that he couldn't make it. So, you know what? I've just got to roll with what I got, and I've got two of the best in the business. So, Kyle, how you doing tonight, man?
You got the B team tonight, man. I'm doing great. I'm just ready to get things started. Let's get it popping, man. I'm ready.
Mr. T never rolls with the B team. He always rolls with the A team. How about you, Aiden?
I'm great. A couple of people else in it, but we'll hold it down. I'm very excited to go through running backs 12 through 1. It was a great conversation going through RB2s last week, and running back is my favorite position to invest in fantasy, talk about in fantasy, so I can't wait for this conversation.
Dude, and that's really it, because this is one of those positions. I love the running back position as well, because with wide receivers, you realize you can probably get a value guy somewhere in the 40s. Tight end, I mean, you've got 5 or 6 guys you can probably rely on, and everything else is a crapshoot. Quarterbacks, we have 2 quarterback leagues at this point, so most weeks you probably have 18 to 20 guys that are startable. Running back being such a high leverage position and being such a scarce position on top of that, you got to think of the volatility that goes on here. Heading into last season, we were talking about Travis Etienne being a possible running back 1 in fantasy, and then he falls off, and now he's seen as a running back 3 this season. So, there is a lot that can change on a year-to-year basis, which is what makes this position so much fun to discuss. So that's what we're going to do tonight. And if you are here with us, thank you for joining us on X, Facebook, Blue Sky, YouTube. If you catch us on TikTok later, guys, we're just happy to have you. But guys, let's start off and get into some news and notes. And let's start with the big news of the week. But before that, let's rank these guys in redraft. Aiden, he says to rank Josh Jacobs, CMC, and Jonathan Taylor tailback, as I like to call him.
For me personally, I'll go Taylor, then Jacobs, then McCaffrey. We'll touch it later, but I'm just really scared to invest in McCaffrey personally.
Yeah. How do you feel about it, Kyle?
Yeah, I'm right there with him. JT, Jacobs, CMC.
So I think I'm CMC, JT, then Jacobs, but I think it's a pretty close race between CMC and JT. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. But first, let's talk about Christian McCaffrey's teammate, Brock Purdy, getting paid, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. 5 years, $265 million. My personal opinion, that's a lot for a mid-range quarterback, but the Niners seem to believe in him. If you're going to pay him $53 million a year, I mean, the Saints paid Derek Carr $40 million a year, so who am I to tell NFL teams what to do with their money? I don't know anything. But we've already discussed our early quarterback rankings. If you missed that, go backtrack on the YouTube channel and go ahead and check that out. Purdy was quarterback 19 in our consensus rankings. Kyle, now that we have this new Brock Purdy news where apparently the 49ers see him as one of the top quarterbacks in the league based off of that pay, are we too low on Brock Purdy for fantasy this year?
I'm going to say no. I mean, I think Brock Purdy is a fine NFL quarterback. I hate to use that word, that cliche word, game manager, but that's just what I want to say he is. And that's okay. You know, he's a solid quarterback in this league. I just feel like it doesn't translate over to fantasy as much. I know in 2023 he finished QB6, but I feel like that's his ceiling. And last year he kind of came back down to earth, finishing quarterback 13, which is right around where I feel like he belongs. So, no, I don't think you guys are too low on him, but great contract for the kid. Mr. Irrelevant.
Yeah, this is the one Mr. Irrelevant guy that got the mega contract.
He's
also,
relevant now.
Fun fact about Mr. Irrelevance, I covered a former Mr. Irrelevant in high school in Trey Quinn, who was drafted by Jorge Edwards, the Boss Mans, at the time, Washington Redskins, now the Washington Commanders. I believe he's actually an assistant coach back in his hometown now, but that's neither here nor there. Shout out Mr. Irrelevant. Maybe the one we have this year, whoever he is going to get a similar contract. But let's go ahead and let's talk about rules. And the NFL came up, and after much speculation, Aiden, one of your favorite rules in the book, the tush push, came up 2 votes short and did not get banned. Saw a stat today where it accounted for 0.28% of all plays of offensive snaps in the league last year. And yet here we are trying to figure out whether we should ban this play or not. We'll talk about Saquon Barkley shortly. But, Aiden, how does this make you feel about Jalen Hurts' fantasy value? We have to be feeling much better about it now that the tush push is still in play, right?
I mean, even before this, I had Jalen Hurts at QB4, and I'm keeping him at QB4. Like, I think he's made a lot of strides in his passing numbers. I think he would still get the rushing touchdowns even without the tush push, whether it's they do just a regular, more nuanced QB sneak, or he just rushes it in, from the red zone, not necessarily from the 1 yard line. So I'm keeping Jalen Hurts at QB4. I can't, have him leap over those top 3 elite guys, but I'm keeping him at QB4 like I have been for the past couple of months. The tush push thing wouldn't have really changed it for me personally. I know a lot of people say, well, that's how he scores fantasy points, but it wouldn't have changed much for me.
Kyle, any other thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, that's fair, Aiden. He had 11 tush push touchdowns just on that play alone. 11. That's a sneak peek into the reason why I kind of like with not taking it away. Saquon isn't my number one. We'll get into that later, but that's the main reason why that I pushed Saquon a little bit down though, and we'll talk about it later. Is the tush push? He scored 11 times from there. If they get to the 1 yard line, he's guaranteed 6 points for your fantasy team.
Yeah, it's really true. Jalen Hurts is just one of these guys where, and we went over it a couple weeks ago, because of receivers, more efficient in the throwing game than we realized. Definitely very efficient in the run game because of all the quarterback sneak touchdowns. Just a solid fantasy option across the board. Mm-hmm. Has a lot of a similar value to what Josh Allen does in terms of around the goal line. He is a guy that is just going to get you rushing touchdowns. And as we know in fantasy football, by the default scoring, passing touchdowns worth 4, rushing touchdowns worth 6. If you have a rushing quarterback who's getting to the end zone on a regular basis, you are in business. And the Baltimore Ravens have one of those rushing quarterbacks, but they made the choice, as Jorge puts up the graphics for tonight, to extend Derrick Henry, and they gave him a 2-year, $30 million extension with $25 million guaranteed. Kyle, I'm just going to go ahead and throw this to you because we all have Derrick Henry as a top 7 running back, but you, my man, you're built different. You have him as running back 4. Is he a first-round pick for you in redraft this year?
Absolutely, he's a first-round pick for me. You know how the saying goes, you can't time the stock market. Well, you can't time Derrick Henry crashing either. He's behind one of the best offensive lines in Baltimore, and defenses have to respect Lamar Jackson. That's a nightmare for opposing teams. And all Derrick Henry does is finish at or near the top 5 at running back at the position every year. Looking at the numbers from fantasy data for half PPR, 2022, RB4, 2023, RB8, 2024 finished RB3 last year. I'm not betting against this monster. And last year was just a sample size. It was his first year in the Ravens offense, and he still led the league in rushing touchdowns, tied with Jahmyr Gibbs and James Cook, respectfully. Now with another year in that system, I think he can lead the league in touchdowns again and maybe even crack 20 touchdown mark. It's possible. And the age narrative, I get it. But Derrick Henry has just defied it for years, and I'm not fading him until he shows any signs of slowing down. So, yes, RB4 for me, and yes, first rounder all day, double-digit touchdown maker.
Yeah, and I hear you. Derrick Henry is just one of these guys who is just a beast every season. But I've got to disagree with you to an extent because I have him down at RB7, and I'm going to do my best to tell you why in this moment. Because with Derrick Henry, what you're looking at, yes, you have a guy who is extremely efficient. I mean, you're looking at a guy who has last year averaged 6.1 yards per touch. He had an EPA of 51.1, which I believe was second at the position overall in fantasy football. Opportunity share of 73.4. Here's my problem and why I just get scared off of Derrick Henry. We've seen it a million times. With a guy like Derrick Henry and running backs in general, there's a very dreaded number that I think we all need to keep tabs on. You know what that number is, Kyle?
29.
Yes, 29 and 30. That is correct.
Age.
Yes, the age threshold where that age apex of production still comes into play. And I get it. Derrick Henry has been very healthy over the years. He's been a monster. He was a monster last year as well. But anytime one of these hyper-productive running backs comes up on that age cliff, it's a little bit like the Wile E. Coyote when he's going against the Roadrunner, where all of a sudden he's running, and then what happens?
Slam.
He just runs off the cliff and he just slams down and hits the bottom of the canyon. So I'm not here telling you that Derrick Henry that's going to happen to him this year. Being that I have him ranked as RB7, he is still a running back 1 in fantasy football. But if you're going to ask me why I have him so low compared to other guys, I mean, just look at the guys who are above him. You have guys like Jahmyr Gibbs, Bijan Robinson, Devon Achane, Bucky Irving, Ashton Jeanty. They all have they all have something in common. They just happen to be younger than Derrick Henry. And it's the same reason why I'm a little bit lower on Saquon Barkley this year, because he's coming off of a very high usage season where he had close to 500 touches between the regular and postseason. There's also a very strong correlation with guys not being as productive that following year with that. But we'll go ahead and we'll get to Saquon Barkley in a little bit. Right now, I want to talk about the fantasy in frames, the fourth in frames consensus RB1 in Bijan Robinson. However, there's some of us, I'm some of us who have one of us that have to disagree with that ranking. So, Aiden, I'm going to go ahead and throw this to you. We haven't seen someone finish as a running back 1 in back-to-back seasons since Drew's guy, Todd Gurley, did so in 2017 and 2018. But yet, one of us Nate has Saquon doing it this year. But I'm going to ask you this. Knowing that Nate has Saquon as RB1 and you have Saquon below that, I believe running back 3, something along those lines, 2 or 3?
2.
Okay. You have Saquon as running back 2. With the tush push news, do you have any concern about moving him down? Or are you just going to kind of keep him where he is in 2025?
I hear you in the value thing because he had right around 400 touches, including the playoffs as well. I'm probably going to keep him at RB2 even as the summer goes on, just because I'm not going to spoil the rookie thing right now, but I'm going to keep him at RB2 and Bijan at RB1. Bijan was clearly RB1 for me. I'm not saying there's some huge gap, but I didn't really have to debate if anyone was worth RB1. I'm going to have Saquon at RB2, tush push or not. He did it last year. Will he have over 2,000 yards, almost break the record again? No, I highly doubt it. But can he have close to it, like 1,800? Absolutely. So that's why I think I'm going to keep him at RB2 because we've seen it for multiple years now.
Yeah, but there's some very convincing data. If you look it up on websites like PFF, where guys coming off of a high usage season like that, almost the next year take a very significant drop where they are nearly in that RB2 range. I'm not saying it's going to happen to Saquon Barkley, but I am saying that there is a very distinct possibility that coming off of a high usage season where, keep in mind, Saquon Barkley happened to stay healthy through all of it. This could tell me one of two things. This is either a fluke season or the New York Giants physician staff was absolutely terrible and just couldn't keep the guy on the field. Let's be honest, both of these are absolutely possible. As for me, and we're going to talk about this ranking discrepancy in for a little bit, because we all have Bijan Robinson as running back 1, except for, this guy. And I'm looking here, and I have Jahmyr Gibbs as my running back 1 here in May for the 2025 season. And there are a lot of people that are looking at this and saying, Rhett, what about David Montgomery? Yeah, we've seen Jahmyr Gibbs do it without David Montgomery. Can he do it with David Montgomery here in 2025? And what I'm going to do right now is hopefully lay out the case for why Jahmyr Gibbs is unquestionably the running back 1 in 2025, in my opinion. First off, let's talk about one of these stats that really show us who a guy is. Fantasy points per opportunity. Jahmyr Gibbs averaged 1.16 fantasy points per opportunity, which was a quarter of a point higher than Bijan Robinson at 0.91. Bijan Robinson had an expected fantasy points per game that was 2.2 points per game higher, sure. And he had more weighted opportunities. But Jahmyr Gibbs in that yards per route run was at 2.55, over a yard better than Bijan Robinson, with a lower target share. A 6.4 yards per touch was once again over a yard better than Bijan Robinson. And here's the stat that's going to blow, in my opinion, the Bijan Robinson RB1 conversation out of the water. EPA, which is expected points added to a team over the course of a season. Bijan Robinson's number last year was a flat 10. I'm going to go around the frames real quick. Kyle, I'm sure you don't have this number on hand right now. Do you want to guess Jahmyr Gibbs' EPA in 2024?
Bijan was a 10?
Bijan was 10.
So I'll say 15.
Aiden?
I'll go 13.
Guys, the Jahmyr Gibbs EPA per the data at playerprofiler.com was 72.4.
That's
what?
7 times better than Bijan Robinson.
Yeah, that's
that's something.
We were
that is a heck of a gap. And by the way, he did all this with a 50% snap share last season.
Yeah.
So you can tell me about the Bijan Robinson 80% snap share all day long. If you can give me a guy who is doing what Bijan Robinson is doing he's giving me 90% of Bijan Robinson on 30% less snaps. You get that guy to 65% this year, which is a distinct possibility because he is that good. What can it look like for Jahmyr Gibbs? Like,
you're selling me on it.
This is a ceiling for me. I get it, but that floor is also pretty dang high, despite the fact that he doesn't play nearly as many snaps as Bijan Robinson. So, Aiden, I'm going to go to you because you have your own hot take here. I just talked about Jahmyr Gibbs being RB1. My man. You have a type. And your type's name is Ashton Jeanty, who you have coming in at running back 3 here for the 2025 season. So, my man, tell me, do you think he has RB1 overall upside? or is he in a separate tier from Bijan Robinson and Saquon Barkley for you?
I'll throw Jahmyr Gibbs in that tier. So my elite tier 1 would be like Bijan, Gibbs, GNT, and then Saquon Barkley as well. I think this is going to be a hot take right off the bat, but I think Ashton GNT could finish the RB1 overall, and I don't want to sound hyperbolic here, but I am expecting Ashton GNT personally to have a Saquon Barkley-esque rookie season. Just based off volume alone, 350, 400 touches, it's well within the realm of possibility. Geno Smith isn't exactly the best, deep ball throw in the world either, so Ashton GNT is going to get a ton of those dump offs and checkdowns and what have you. And don't say GNT can't do well in the receiving game, because he had over 40 receptions in the receiving game in 2023, so the year before last year, at Boise State. They just didn't use him like that in 2024. So yeah, based on volume alone, explosiveness, draft pedigree, draft capital, everything I just laid out there, I absolutely do think he could finish as RB1 overall. And I think he's in that tier 1 of elite guys. I know that might be a hot take, but I am really, really very bullish on Ashton GNT. And I think he could have legit touchdown opportunities too. I think this Raiders offense is going to sneak up on a lot of people and be a lot better than people are expecting.
Kyle, what are your thoughts on GT here heading into 2025?
I mean, I wouldn't really call it a hot take, Aiden, because there are a lot of people high on Ashton GNT. I personally just want to temper my expectations here just a little bit. I think we're all kind of getting caught up in the moment here, caught up in the hype, the new flavor of the week, Ashton GNT. Don't get me wrong. I see the talent. He was tremendous in college. He has absolutely Pro Bowl potential, but that might not happen in year 1. I've got him at RB6, not RB26, so I'm still in on him, but I can't rank him any higher without actually proving it at the NFL level yet. I know Saquon Barkley did it, but let's not forget he's playing for the Las Vegas Raiders. They're not very good. They'll be trailing in a lot of games, so he'll be in a lot of negative game script. And I looked ahead at his schedule. That's not doing him any favors either, just in his division alone. He plays the Broncos, Chiefs, and Chargers, right? The Broncos were 3rd in fewest yards allowed last year. Chiefs were 8th, and Chargers are 14th. So his softest matchup in the division is middle of the pack. Outside of the division, he's got to face Philly and Houston, both top 10 run defenses last season. It's not a death sentence, but it's definitely not a cakewalk either. So drafting him in the first or early second round to me is essentially paying full price for him. And you're just drafting him at his ceiling, in my opinion.
So, Aiden, I want to do bounce back on that and talk about the ceiling on Ashton GNT, because drafting him at running back 3 is close to where he is going in terms of ADP right now. But I went ahead and I looked at a very recent example of a running back absolutely exploding in their first year. And to do that, we're going to go ahead and talk about Ezekiel Elliott's 2016 season, where he finished as the running back 2 in PPR scoring with 325.4 fantasy points. That's pretty good. Do you know what he had to do to get there?
Ton of touchdowns.
He had to rush for 1,631 yards, average 5 yards per carry, rush for 15 touchdowns, while getting another 363 receiving yards through the air. So, all that to say, is it possible? Anything's possible. But it is also very, very difficult for a running back to come out year 1 in the NFL. This is to say that Ashton GNT is not a special talent. But if you're going to come out the gate and get 1,615 rushing touchdowns and another 400 receiving, yeah, you might as well lock him up right now as the RB1 for the following year. Because if he does that, I will tip my cap to you. All I'm saying is this. Last year, we had a very similar discussion, a very high-level prospect in Marvin Harrison Jr. And I came with the same argument about Marvin Harrison Jr. last year, in that to achieve what people were expecting of him as a wide receiver 1, he had to put up what was essentially a top 5 rookie receiving season of all time, along with about 10 touchdowns. And in order to hit that high of a threshold, it just doesn't happen very often. I get it happens more regularly these days with these young players, but Nonetheless, I'm with Kyle on this, where we are looking at with Ashton Jeanty, which is why I'm a little bit lower on him. I'm at running back 3. You are definitely drafting him at the ceiling right now. And if Ashton Jeanty ends up as a running back 3 in fantasy football in terms of draft rankings, once drafts start happening, I will have none of Ashton Jeanty in 2025. And I can say that with absolute confidence.
Fair enough.
I'm just glad that Aiden and I actually had a disagreement, because out of 3 and 4 episodes, we agree a lot. So
I know.
It's
We
finally
rank
refreshing-
similarly.
It's finally refreshing to have a different take than Aiden.
So, speaking of takes that are going to be refreshing, Kyle, you have one of my probably favorite players for a long time now, in Jonathan Taylor. You're ahead of consensus on Jonathan Taylor here in 2025. So tell me why. Give me the argument as to why you think he is such a solid bet to be a running back 1 this season.
Well, he's got the 3-down skill set. He's the workhorse role back again. Last season, he held down a 63% snap share. I expect that to continue. He's got Khalil Herbert there and DJ Giddens, the rookie they drafted this year. I don't see them cutting much into his workload. The coaches trust him. So do I. He posted 321 total touches in 2024, and that's despite missing the final 3 games with that high ankle sprain. The volume puts him in elite company. Only 5 other backs hit that 300 touch mark. Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry, Kyron Williams, Bijan Robinson, and Jonathan Taylor. No one else was even close. Even back in 2023, where he played in 10 games, he still racked up near 900 total yards. So the production's there. It's just been about staying healthy. But if he can give us a full season, he's the type of player that can finish top 5 at running back or even RB1 at the end of the season. And drafting him at Fantasy Pros right now at 21 overall, I believe you're getting a massive discount there. He can outperform that average draft position, and the value's written all over the guy. So, yeah, I love me some Jonathan Taylor this year.
Aiden, where are you at on Taylor?
I love it too. I think I have him either. I think Kyle and I actually have the exact same ranking. So I love the volume he's going to get. We have all these questions about the Colts weapons and can the QB feed those weapons, whether it's Daniel Jones or Anthony Richardson. Those doubts bode very well for Jonathan Taylor because, yes, the touchdown opportunities may not be there because how many times are they going to be at the goal line, but the volume is going to be there. So I'm right with Kyle. I love Jonathan Taylor for this year. And if you can get him down where he's going, I feel like he would be a value.
But here's my question. I'm going to play devil's advocate here for a second for you guys. We mentioned the lack of weapons and the lack of quarterback production and the questions as to whether or not he can even successfully get the ball out towards these receivers in 2025. So my question for you guys is I'm looking at Jonathan Taylor's numbers from last year with Anthony Richardson, and admittedly, this was not great quarterback play. But Jonathan Taylor had 56 stuffed runs last year, which was an 18.5% rate. He, at 56 stuffs, was ranked 3rd in the NFL. Does that alarm you guys when we can argue that the quarterback play hasn't gotten any better? We know that Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones are not especially feared passers. So, yes, we can agree that the volume is going to be there. And I know he did it last year, despite the fact that he didn't have good quarterback play. Aiden, where are you over? Like, you still in, despite the fact that we have all these stuffs and all these things. And as Jorge says, then the Colts lose a key piece of their offensive line as well. So with offensive line concerns, quarterback concerns, and all these things going on, finish the job, finish selling me, because there are legitimate concerns here.
I hear you on those concerns, but I'm somewhere in the middle. So I personally don't agree with it, just because, yes, we have questions, but I think those questions can be quelled by Jonathan Taylor's talent himself, just because Kyle mentioned the 3-down skill set. And we might get to a point where giving Jonathan Taylor the ball a million times might be the only way they can move the ball with those quarterback questions.
Yeah, fair enough. So, Kyle, we have to go and address the elephant in the room, which is usually a 2-headed monster. First, the San Francisco 49ers are in the middle of an immense rebuild. Secondly, Christian McCaffrey missed a lot of time last year. Isaac Guerrero emerged and he had some success. But yet, looking at Drew's rankings, he had Christian McCaffrey at running back 5, while none of us had him any higher than running back 8. So go ahead and give me what your stance is on Christian McCaffrey here in 2025 and why he can either be a success that pays off or an absolute bust.
Look, I get it with Drew having him in his top 5. He's been that dude for years. A lot of people actually have him in the top 5, but for me, last year raised a lot of red flags. Yes, he could absolutely be the bounce back player of the year. He's got the talent, he's got the role, he's got the track record. But he's going into age 29. You talked about it earlier, Rhett, when the season starts. He's coming off a knee injury. He's dealing with Achilles tendonitis, which he has said that's 100% under control now. But I don't know if I fully believe that. This guy has been taking a beating over the years, and eventually, when elite players hit a wall physically. For someone who has been heavily used as McCaffrey, that's a concern, not just noise. Could I be wrong? Sure. If he's healthy, he is a top-tier talent. But I want to see him in pads. I want to see him with that burst again. And if I do, maybe I'll bump him up a little bit in my running back rankings. But until then, there's no way I'm going to have him in my top 5.
So while we're sitting here in 8, I'm going to give you the chance to perhaps rebut and tell me where you are on CMC right now. But there are a few numbers that kind of tell us that Christian McCaffrey definitely may not have been himself last year. I have fantasy points per opportunity numbers for about 7 running backs right now. Jahmyr Gibbs, Bijan Robinson, Saquon Barkley, Devon Achane, Bucky Irving, Derrick Henry, Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey among those 7 running backs was a distant 7th at 0.69 fantasy points per opportunity, which was about a quarter of a point lower than Bucky Irving, who we're going to discuss in a bit. So my question is this. How are we going to address the injury concerns with Christian McCaffrey coming off of last season? He says everything's under control, but where are you on Christian McCaffrey, Aiden?
I agree with Kyle. You're not getting any more about it from me tonight. I have him at RB10, and I don't see me moving him up. Christian McCaffrey, I've seen immense talent, but he's had, tons of touches, whether it's college, Carolina, in San Francisco, and the 49ers and Kyle Shanahan can say, we'll ease up on the touches a little. Oh, we won't give him as many touches. Yeah, he says that every year, and then they continue to give him a million touches. I don't know. Just every year, it feels like he has something going on. I just can't get there. Personally, I'm terrified of Christian McCaffrey, and Isaac Guerrero showed legit promise last year, so much so that they were ready to trade Jordan Mason away, and I feel like he could carve out more of a load. I don't know if Christian McCaffrey will get near the touches he's been getting. It's more of a I have to see it first to believe it again situation. So I'm right there with Kyle.
Yeah, just to add to that, I didn't even think about that. I could see the 49ers running a little bit more 2-back set too, trying to preserve Christian McCaffrey, trying to preserve that knee. Maybe they ramp them up when they get closer to, if they're in contention for the NFL playoffs, then maybe that's when they'll unleash the reins, so to speak. But for your fantasy season, I could see them babying McCaffrey and running Guerrero a little bit more because he did look pretty good last season, in my opinion.
I agree that I don't know. This could be more of a, not a split, but more of a timeshare that we're anticipating. It'll be really frustrating. Real life, it's great for Christian McCaffrey, but for fantasy, I'm not touching him. I'm personally terrified to draft him this year.
Yeah, these are all valid concerns in terms of Christian McCaffrey, but I want to go ahead and let's go ahead and transition into a guy that Nate and I both had as a top 4 running back, heading into 2025, which is Devon Achane. Devon Achane is one of these guys who, coming into the league a couple years ago, there were concerns. Is he big enough? Can he handle the workload? All these different things. And so far, through 2 years in the league, so far so good. So, Kyle, I'm going to go ahead and start with you. What is your ranking and outlook for Devon A-Chain heading into 2025, and then I'll bounce back and give you my own thoughts.
I like him too. He's my RB5. He's electric. He was electric last year. 1499 total yards. Every time he touches the ball, you feel like it could go for 6. He's in the same explosive tier to me as Jahmyr Gibbs and Bucky Irving, both of them having with 3 40-plus yard runs last season. Sure, Jalen Wright might see a little bit more involvement, and that's fine. Raheem Mostert had a pretty significant role as well last year, 85 carries, 19 receptions for Mostert, which took about 24% of the snaps. If Wright slides right into something like that, it's not a deal breaker for me, maybe a little bit more. Sure, Achane is just too dynamic, too efficient, and too vital for what Miami does offensively. As long as he could stay healthy, I'm not sweating the committee at all. He's a top 5 running back for me and one of the most exciting players in fantasy football.
Dude, isn't much of a committee. Can we be honest?
No. Yeah.
Because I'm going to give you the separator as to why Devon A-Chain is such a lock for me as a top 5 running back this year. The fact that last season, if they retained the slot usage that they used with Devon A-Chain last year, my man came through with 78 catches for 592 receiving yards and 1.03 fantasy points per opportunity on top of his 900 rushing yards. So the usage ceiling on a guy like Devon A-Chain is Alvin Kamara on steroids. You have the pass catching volume, you have the explosiveness, you have the ability to break the big play, you have the high route participation. He ran 302 routes and participated in 47.6% of routes last year. He had a 15.6% target share. He was 13th in evaded tackles with 57. He averaged 5.3 yards per touch. He created 4.25 yards per touch. Like, there are just so many things that we love about him. At the same time, we can play devil's advocate a little bit and see that he was stuffed on 24.1% of his runs last year. That's maybe where the size becomes a bit of a question. But I'm not sure that there is any running back in the league that is going to be able to give you more between the 20s and also have those high leverage touches in the passing game like Devon A-Chain will have.
Well said. I can't even argue that because I love the kid. He's fun to watch.
All right. So speaking of fun to watch, last year in the second half of the season, Aiden, I'm just going to go ahead and start off with you. Bucky Irving was dynamite the second half of the year last year. Yet heading into 2025, most of us have him at running back 8. You all have him at running back 8, except for me. I'm higher on him at running back 5. Once again, I'm just kind of into these hyper efficient guys who seem to be able to break big plays. That's kind of just my type. So what has Bucky Irving at running back 8 for you?
So context here, I really like Bucky Irving. I just prefer the 7 guys ahead of him, if that makes sense. I feel like Tampa Bay, especially with the drafting of Emeka Egbuka, maybe Jalen McMillan takes a small-ish year or 2 leap. It's a pass-heavy volume with Baker Mayfield. In the red zone especially, they pass a lot with Baker Mayfield. So I know that Bucky is very explosive. He's a very good receiving back. But how much do they actually give him the ball in the red zone? So I love Bucky. It just goes back to how much rushing volume and opportunities will be there. And I know when Liam Cohen was there last year, he phased Rashad White out in year 2. But what if the new OC, I can't recall his name, sorry, but what if the new OC comes in and says, hey, we want to go back to Rashad White. Rashad White still has value here. And it not a 50-50 split, but Rashad White creeps back up into retaining value, if that makes sense. So I love Bucky. Those are just a few things I would throw out there for my lower-ish ranking, lower than you at least.
Yeah. And rebuttal here. Aiden, are you by any chance into that equine life? You raise horses. Have you been around the horses up there in Buffalo by any chance?
No.
Big horse guy or
not
no?
At all. No.
All right. So I'm going to break this down in good Southern terms for you. When a wild horse gets out the stable, baby, you ain't going to tame him. And that's where we are with Bucky Irving. This was a guy who last season only had a 46% snap share, a 49.6 opportunity share, yet ends up, if you're telling me that the new regime is going to keep a guy who in only 46% of snaps had a 29.5% juke rate and 75 evaded tackles and 14 breakaway runs. He had a 7% breakaway run rate. If you're telling me that they are going to keep that in the box in exchange for Rachaad White catching some passes and falling down after 7 yards, fine. If you really feel that that's where we are,
No, I'm not.
fine.
I'm not saying we are. I'm just saying it's a possibility with the new OC.
Okay, so is that why you're lower on just that what if side of it?
Pretty much. I should probably move him up, though, after hearing you talk about it.
Yeah. So what if they give him 60% of snaps this year?
Yeah.
What if they give him 65? What if it's 55? What if it's anything higher than last season? And is there a year of tape on him compared to last year? Absolutely. But that's the thing, is that fantasy football, and I heard JJ Zachariason say this, and I just kind of love it. This is a game of variables. It is a game of outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
We can't definitively say that Bucky Irving is going to be this guy or he isn't going to be this guy. What we can say with confidence, and what I can say with confidence, is that in terms of range of outcomes, I personally feel good about Bucky Irving being on the higher end of those outcomes based off of what he did last season and the opportunity that he's heading into this season. Because despite the fact that Tampa does like to throw the ball quite a bit, we don't know who Chris Godwin is heading into 2025. We don't know if it's going to be them trying to spread the ball around to 4 wide receivers plus Kate Otten. We don't know who's getting phased out, who's getting phased in, what's really going on there. But I do know this. I know that they have a hyper-efficient running back in that backfield. And once you have one of those guys, it's hard to look at a guy like that and say, we're going to take the ball out of his hands in favor of a 19th overall pick who could possibly be 4th on the depth chart, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I'm just going off, I like Bucky. I'm just trying to paint a picture, why I have him at RBA compared to you. What if this happened? What if everything not breaks in the wrong way, but just what if a couple of things don't roll his way, if that makes sense.
I mean,
go ahead.
No, just to kind of back you up too with that, Rhett. Last season, Bucky ranked RB11 in explosive runs with 27 carries of 10+ yards. In comparison to Rachaad White, he was way down at running back 40 with just 11 of those. That's a massive gap in burst and playmaking ability. Bucky was second in yards after contact per attempt with an elite 4.03 yards after contact per attempt. For contacts, anything over 3 is considered strong. That shows that he's very explosive. The offensive line that you talked about, Aiden, there's no change there. Liam Cohen leaving for Jacksonville. I'm not overly concerned with that as well because Tampa promoted within. So their offensive game coordinator is now going to take over as the offensive coordinator. So I don't expect a major shift in that area.
And these are all great points. And we have had a great discussion tonight. Before we get out of here, let's go around the frames real quick. Let's go start with Kyle, then go to Aiden. Kyle, first off, tell me the top 5 running back in your rankings that you think has the highest chance of falling outside of the top 12.
For me, where did I put that? Oh, I wrote that down somewhere. Top 5 rankings. Falling outside the top 12 for me is Devon Achane. It's just strictly due to health concerns. He's had a history of injuries. He's had a high ankle sprain, shoulder. He's had a concussion, even dating back to his college days. He's had a foot issue that lasted him missing a few weeks against Florida back in his college days. So for me, if the only way he falls out is injury.
Aiden?
Okay, so this pains me to say just because of the monster season he's coming off of, but I'm going to go with Saquon Barkley just because of just because I'm not predicting in May, whatever, that it will happen, but just because of the immense value he's gotten, Jalen Hurd continuing to vulture those touches with the tush post staying in play, or touchdowns. Seems to be with the tush-push thing in place, and he doesn't really catch passes. He's capable of it, but that offense isn't built around it. Jalen Hurts is not a check down guy, so that I don't want to say caps, but that's certainly something to keep in mind, especially for PPR formats. So I'm going to go with Saquon Barkley just because what if the volume, what if it really does affect him? So.
Yeah, these are all valid points. And I'm just going to go ahead and back up with what you said, Kyle, about possibilities of falling outside of the top 12. Devon Achane and the injury concerns are a legitimate thing, but there's also the fact that what teams do in the offseason kind of give us ideas of where they can go in the following season. And for the Miami Dolphins, over the past few years, everything has been speed, correct?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But this offseason, not only did they bring in Alexander Madison as depth,
Gordon.
They also drafted Ollie Gordon.
Yeah.
So all I'm saying is this. Devon Achane has a history of injuries, and what if this being a game of possibilities and a game of outcomes and variance, what if the Miami Dolphins go to more of a power-based game this season? You don't draft and sign these sort of guys without the idea of at least using them. So if nothing else, there is a very good chance that we're not going to see as much of the speed sweep stuff and all the motion that we have in past years. Maybe Madison gets in there, gets in between the tackle stuff. Maybe Ollie Gordon makes a name for himself. There's possibilities here that with the usage and the way things are going on, it just something changes in that backfield, and it could affect who Devon Achane is in 2025.
That's a fair point, because even when he came back from injury last year, they seem to want to baby him a little bit and use other people when they get down in that red area. So that's a fair point. It may not just be injury with Devon Achane.
All right, so let's go ahead and let's talk about our running backs. Once again, we're going to start with Aiden this time. Our running back that is outside of your top 5 that you feel has the best chance to finish as the RB1 overall.
You convinced me. I got to move him up. It's Bucky Irving. He's just very efficient. He's a very good receiving back. He's on a very high-powered offense. I don't really think I'm a Rachaad White after talking it out. And Kyle mentioned a very good point of how they promoted within for the OC. So I think they'll ride Bucky Irving. I think there'll also be multiple red zone opportunities as well with this high-powered offense. So I'll go with him. You convinced me after talking it out.
Oh, you're welcome. Kyle, who do you have, buddy?
I'm going with Jonathan Taylor, man. He's done it before. He's done it before. We didn't talk about it, but in 2021, who was the RB1?
Jonathan Taylor.
And with the current quarterback situation, I don't care if it's Daniel Jones. I don't care if it's Anthony Richardson. I think the Colts are going to lean heavily on Taylor. And with enough volume, he can absolutely do it again in 2025.
Agreed.
Yeah, I love that. And for me, I'm just going to go ahead. I can't pinpoint one guy, so I'm going to say that if there are guys outside of my top 5 that have a chance of finishing as the RB1 overall, I'm going to take what both of you said earlier. Derrick Henry and that efficiency, you can never count it out. And if Ashton Jeanty comes to life and becomes that player that people think he can be, there is upside there where there is a possibility that he can be a running back, the running back 1 in fantasy football this season.
It's fair.
So, guys, before we get out of here, let's think about our friends at Fast Draft and make sure that our subscribers here at Fantasy and Frames and Fourth and Frames are downloading the Fast Draft app today and using the promo code FRAMES, which is going to earn you a first-time deposit match of up to $50 in credits. They've got this Origin game where you draft only rookies. It's dope. They have a Flex 4 game where you pick your favorite players for the upcoming season. And they have a D-Up game, which is just like Flex 4, but only with IDP Fantasy Football players. Their drafts are quick. It's a 20-second timer. It's PPR formatted. It's a 6-round best ball draft. It's perfect for those on the go, but also itching to kind of get that draft thing done quick, fast, in a hurry, and still win some money on the side. So once again, all you got to do is hit Fast Draft with the promo code FRAMES, and that'll get you up to a deposit match of $50 in credits. Ladies and gentlemen, those are our friends at Fast Draft. Start drafting faster. So, guys, before we get out of here, Aiden, what was your big takeaway from tonight, man?
Yeah, it just solidifies that there's a lot of great RBs and fans this year. I know my hot take with the Ashton Giante at RB3. I'm very excited to see his rookie season, especially with this loaded RB class. And again, it just hammers home the point we were talking about earlier. I love to invest in RBs in fantasy personally. That's why I like to hammer them early in drafts, especially for redraft leagues.
Kyle?
You broke it down nicely on Bucky Irvin. You're selling me a little bit more. I might have to relook at my
Me too.
my rankings here a little bit. Maybe I got to bump them up a little bit. I don't know. Well, I definitely want to keep my eye out on Bucky, and as we ramp up closer to camp and preseason, I'll definitely be keeping my eye on Bucky. And look, I know we're talking about it because it's way too early. These rankings could definitely change, but I will be keeping my eye out, and I'm excited for what you had to say about my dog, Bucky Irvin, man, because I was high on him coming out of Oregon, too.
I liked him in college a lot, yeah.
Yeah, so, guys, for me, it's just Aiden probably, maybe, almost. We'll see where we go with Ashton Giante heading forward. I might have to bump him up a little bit. But besides that, I mean, we are looking with these top 10 running backs and even the top 12, because we didn't even get to guys who have value like Chase Brown, a Ken Walker, a Josh Jacobs, those sort of guys. Yeah, these are all guys that can also end up, and a Breece Hall can end up in that running back one discussion
at the end of the year. Respect.
And that is the beauty of this game, is that you have someone that's at the top of these lists right now in May is going to end up much lower than we expect them to be by the end of the season. And there's going to be someone who's going to have a breakout season and is going to be way up on those draft boards next year. So, dog, this game is fun. This game is the best. And we're going to continue to talk about fantasy football next week when we look at our wide receiver rankings and we go over our running backs that we have ranked 13 to 24. Before we get out of here, Kyle, tell the people where they can find you on Twitter.
Man, catch me at KZ1180.
And Aiden?
You can follow me at A113.
And you can also follow us at Fantasy and Frames. You can follow the Fourth and Frames podcast. You can catch any of our podcasts. Shoot the Gap, Dynasty 365. We have the Draft Show. We got all sort of things going on to give you the award-winning content that we hope you find with us, and hopefully win you a few rings in the process. So, for Kyle, for Aiden, for my boys Drew and Nate that couldn't be here tonight, I'm Rhett Manuel. We are Fourth and Frames. Toodles.